And so I've never believed that. But what I told people was, since Jude quotes from Enoch, maybe there's some reliable information there. Well, I've since changed my mind. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I'm going to deal with the Jude quotes the book of Enoch issue. In the book of Jude, here's exactly what the Bible says. In Jude verse 14, the Bible says, "And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints." Now you will find that in verse 15, "To execute judgment upon all and to convince all that are ungodly." You will find that exact quote, or nearly identical quote, inside the book of Enoch. Now, from what I understand, the book of Enoch predates Christ about 100 years or so, somewhere around in there. Here's the issue. Jude never says in verse 14 or 15 that Enoch wrote this. He never said that. He simply said that Enoch said this. Now, there is at least one other place in the New Testament that I know of where the gospel writer quotes Jeremiah as saying something, and if you read the entire book of Jeremiah, you'll never see it. It's not in Lamentations. A similar quote appears in, I think, Zechariah. And so do we believe that the New Testament gospel writer made a mistake where he should have said Zechariah but instead said Jeremiah? No. We believe that God had preserved the words of Jeremiah and delivered them to whatever gospel writer this was. I can't remember. I think it's Matthew. And so Matthew was simply, as being led by the Holy Spirit, was writing down exactly what at one point Jeremiah said, even though it's not written in the book of Jeremiah nor in Lamentations. And so a similar idea is that Jude is actually writing down something that Enoch said. Now, that saying may have been preserved through oral tradition and quite possibly some sort of written record, okay? But Jude is not actually in this verse giving credence to a book called Enoch. Now, something else I know about the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch belongs to a group of Hebrew literature called pseudepigrapha. Pseudepigrapha. The pseudo part of that word is like a pseudonym, where you write a book under a different name, or you sign a name that's not your name. That's a pseudonym. Pseudepigrapha means it's a collection of Hebrew literature that bears the name of somebody famous, but they didn't write it. And so the book of Enoch belongs in that category. It has Enoch's name on it, but he didn't write it. It's sort of like the alleged gospel of St. Peter, or the gospel of Thomas, or the gospel of Mary Magdalene. Those quote-unquote gospels contain Peter's name or Thomas's name or whoever, Mary Magdalene's name. They didn't write it. They were written by Gnostic scholars who had an agenda, and that agenda was to thwart the real gospel of Jesus Christ and to deny the divinity of Christ and so on. Even a gospel according to Judas, if you can imagine that. One copy survives. And so anyway, did Enoch write a book? I doubt it. Okay? Did Enoch say what's recorded by Jude in Jude 14 and 15? Absolutely. Absolutely. So what does that tell us about the historical accuracy of the account and the description of the fallen angels and the giants as described by the book of Enoch? You can take it with a grain of salt. I've read it. It's interesting to me. It may in fact shed a historical light upon what the Bible says, similar to the way that Josephus sheds a little bit of light concerning the time of Christ and the historical record of Christ. Josephus was a Jewish historian. He was Roman. And he wrote out all this historical record of, the nation of Israel and so on. And he wrote it as a Roman historical record. And he basically said, yeah, there was a Jesus. Don't even think that there wasn't, because there was. And here's the records of it. Josephus actually even talks about the sons of God and the daughters of men. And Josephus says that they were fallen angels that mated with human women. And so do I accept that as Josephus' words? Yes, and I think they're accurate. The same conclusion I would draw concerning the book of Enoch. You might want to read it. You don't have to. If you really want to understand the nature of fallen angels, the sons of God, the whole daughters of men thing, I'm telling you, I think you're better off just reading the Scriptures. Okay? Now, if you are a history buff like I am, you want to throw in all this extra stuff, that's fine. But don't use it to contradict, countermand, or whatever the written, historical, perfectly accurate record of the King James Bible. That's my spin on the book of Enoch. And then there was a new story that came out today. Take a look at this. I thought this was really, and let me see if I can find the story here. NASA satellite captures enormous 90-mile wide storm that's underwater. A NASA satellite has provided jaw-dropping pictures of a huge storm brewing under the sea. The swirling mass of water, which measures a whopping 93 miles wide, has been spotted off the coast of South Africa by the Terra satellite on December 26. There's no need to alert international shipping or worry about the poor fish that might find themselves in the endless washing cycle. The body of water poses no threat. Indeed, it is more likely to create life by sucking nutrients from the bed and bringing them to the surface. The sea storms, which are better known as eddies, from bizarre world-shaped shapes deep beneath the ocean's surface. And well, here's what's interesting about this to me. And somebody who sent this to me commented that it looks like the Fibonacci spiral, and it is. It's like the same spiral that's in a hurricane and the all the things that we have in the DNA video. It's the Fibonacci spiral. And here's what's interesting to me. We know that Elijah went up into heaven by a whirlwind. We know that. We know that God speaks from the whirlwind, and this whirlwind, I think, is important. Also, in the occult, there is what they call the sacred spiral. And they say that this is the key to immortality and the key to life and unlocking this and, all the lingo that they use. Interesting thing about this is that we know that the beast is rising up from where? He's rising up from the sea. And when I saw this, I'm going, you know what? I think that might have something to do with the beast that rises up from the sea. Interesting. We'll keep our eye on that. And then somebody sent me this. This is the Anti-Bethel website. The Anti-Bethel. This is from Bethel Church in Redding, California. Let me see if I saved that page. No, I didn't. I wish I had. Hang on a second here. I might be able to. Here we go. I'm going to zoom in on it so I can read it better. This is a ministry of Bethel Church, not this Bethel Church. The Bethel Church of Redding, California, whose leader, Bill Johnson, is all about signs, wonders, manifestations, Joel's Army. I mean, you name it. It's crazy. Here is their new ministry called Global Legacy. Global Legacy is an apostolic. Let me stop right there. Apostolic. Here's what they mean by that. The apostolic movement says that there is right now, walking around in blue jeans and T-shirts, living apostles. Okay? And Bill Johnson, of course, is one of them. Stan Johnson, anybody named Johnson is an apostle. No, just kidding. Bill Johnson, Stan Johnson, there's a whole movement of apostolic churches. And they believe that their leaders are Latter-day Apostles. Here's the problem with this. Apostles write doctrine. Apostles have pretty much all earthly authority over the church. And I have a huge problem with that. These guys calling themselves apostles. They're not. They're falsely so called. And I did a Bible study on that where we talked about, it's in the book, out of the book of Revelation, where we talked about the Latter-day Apostolic movement. But anyway, getting back to what he said here, if I can find it again, here we go. It's an apostolic relational network of revival leaders whose purpose is to bring heaven to earth. Now, they quote Matthew chapter 6, verse 10. Okay? Well, I'm going to open up my can of King James here, and let's read what Matthew chapter 6, verse 10 says, and see if it matches what they're talking about. Matthew 6:9 begins with, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Nothing here, nothing in this prayer is about bringing heaven to earth. I know the setup that's behind that. I know what's behind that. It's Daniel chapter 2 and the mingling of the fourth kingdom with the seed of men. That's what that's about. But that's the talk that you hear them talk about. We're going to bring heaven to the earth. Heaven and earth's going to collide. There's going to be a fusion of heaven and earth together. I'm telling you, that's a setup. It's a setup to get church people to go get a mark on their right hand or forehead, is what it is. And so it says, following the New Testament model for apostleship, Global Legacy seeks to establish kingdom government and to build empowering cultures. Kingdom government. That is it's dominion theology. If Bill Johnson and the Bethel Church crowd and the Joel's Army crowd, once they become the super gods, the God men, and have their superpowers given to them, then they're going to go through and conquer the entire earth for Jesus Christ so that when he comes back to reign, he won't have to do anything. He'll just sit down on the throne and say, thank you, boys. That's kingdom theology. It's very, very dangerous, and it's a setup. It is not Bible Christianity. Recognizing that relationship is the foundation of God's government, Global Legacy helps to build relationships between revival leaders through relational gatherings, ministry events, and mission trips, as well as through monthly newsletters and video conferencing. Global Legacy also offers resources that equip leaders and those they lead to transform their spheres of influence and surrounding cultures into kingdom cultures. Now, I want to stop right here, and I want to segue into a subject that is related to that. Let me pull this back up here and read it real quick. Global Legacy also offers resources that equip leaders and those they lead to transform their spheres of influence and surrounding cultures into kingdom cultures. Okay, it's the materials that they're offering and the resources that they're offering that I find interesting, and I'll tell you why. And I've been wanting to do this for like 4 weeks. I've had this as actually part of the Watchman broadcast script for the past month just about, and finally got around to doing it today. I did, as I promised last night during our church service. I had